Welcome back to the Powell Bros movie reviews. I am Tobiah Powell, one of your hosts, joined by Trent Powell, your other host. How are you
Welcome.
doing today, Trent?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Bit tired, but
Yep.
we'll get through this.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we're reviewing X-Men Dark Phoenix, which I think is the last X-Men for a little while.
Yeah, for a little while
Um,
because we have. Well, so we're not doing Days of Future Past until after the first three X-Men. Is that correct? So we
it's
follow
even
the
later than
timeline.
that, I think. Doesn't it take place in 2023?
Well, yeah, it does, but we won't do the Days of Future Past until we do the other X-Men movies.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's definitely after the other X-Men
Right.
movies.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but
we
yeah,
have a little while till we get to
yeah,
first X-Men.
the first X-Men movie, I guess, is that might not be that far away actually.
Yeah, late
But yeah,
'90s maybe or early 2000s. I don't know.
2000, I think, just 2000 or 2001.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, X-Men Dark Phoenix. This was a very new movie for the X-Men.
Yep. Yeah, very
Um,
recent. It came out. It actually came out around the same time as Captain Marvel. Which aren't we doing that next week or in 2 weeks or yeah, next
that's
week?
next week. Yeah.
Yeah. So it came out the same time, and it takes place around the same time too. I mean, just
Yeah. Huh.
interesting note.
Yeah.
And both female-led superhero movies.
Yeah. This one, it came out before Disney bought Fox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
it. Well, yeah,
but
because
this was also after Stanley had already died, and when this came out.
okay, yeah. So didn't have any cameos. But I think Disney bought Fox, and then they Disney technically Fox under Disney released the New Mutants, like that horror
Oh,
mutant
okay.
movie. But Dark Phoenix I think came out like right before they sold. So this was
Oh,
the
okay. Yeah.
last of the Fox X-Men movies.
Yeah.
Except for when did
Okay.
Logan come out? Well, yeah, Logan was before this.
Logan was 2019.
Okay.
All right. I guess we can start with your initial thoughts of the movie. What'd
All
you
right.
think?
Yeah, so what? This is our fourth or fifth X-Men movie. I don't even. We've been watching a
I
lot of
think
X-Men.
fifth at least.
Yeah, because this is the third of I mean, kind of a trilogy. I mean, Days of Future Past kind of fits into this, but First Class, Apocalypse, this one, and we also did X-Men Origins. So this would be the fourth. Math, something I don't know. I think it's the fourth. Anyways, so I don't know. It followed a lot of the same formulas as the other ones, especially the team up ones. You're continuing to follow the story arc of Charles and even Eric and Raven, and I don't know. Like it's kind of it got old at this point. Like I remember when this came out. I didn't even watch it until I think the first time I saw it was on an airplane, like maybe a year ago. So it wasn't that long ago, and
Yeah.
I just never watched it. I never really cared to, because it was just kind of the end of I think overly stretched out series trilogy of films, and
Yeah.
like I said, they follow a lot of the same formulas. But this one, this one had so many problems.
Yeah.
It was, for one, it was boring. The
Yeah.
action, there was like very little action, and the action that was there was really lame, and some of the choreography was, I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
some of the CGI not that great either, and there wasn't really a story, and there was just a lot going on, and like you had multiple antagonists if you include like the military men who are just generic military men. There's no like clear even leader in that group, and then you have these aliens that are coming to Earth, and this one lady who has undefined powers and wants Jean's powers, and there's no really they're not telling us why they came or how they came. They just happen to show up, and there's a solar flare, and Jean happens to get sucked into it, and and then it's just kind of like the story just kind of goes on, and things happen, and there's not really anything. There's not really a plot driving the story except for Jean's trying to figure out what's going on with her powers, and then she runs away, and she finds out Charles was lying to her about her father, and finds her father. Her father doesn't want her, so she unleashes her power. She kills Raven, and then and then she runs away again and goes to Eric, and Eric's like kind of wants to help but doesn't, and then the military men come and try to take her, which kind of, I don't know, it was just a lot of the movie I was kind of confused, and it was yeah, like I said, it's just, there wasn't really a story to follow, and like the third act was just a complete mess. I don't even really know what happened. Like I said, the first two acts were okay, and then getting to the third act, it's just a mess. The pacing was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there that you went through.
In case you didn't catch what I'm laying down, I didn't like this movie. But anyways, I covered a lot, and those are my initial thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, no, same. Kind of going back to one of the first things you said, I think these movies definitely should have just ended with a trilogy.
Yep.
Trilogies work, and there's a reason they work.
Well, and this one was so weird because you have Days of Future Past, which is like kind of a sequel to both First Class and the 3 X-Men movies.
Yeah.
So, and then you have the First Class, Apocalypse, and this one, and yeah. Anyways.
Well, even just because I always thought like Apocalypse kind of wrapping up, like being like, yeah, even after Days of Future Past, they still have another story.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to this one, and it's like Fox was really milking the X-Men and having possession of them.
Absolutely.
And you can really tell that. And like a lot of their character development also seemed kind of off.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't like that I noticed was that they seemed to be making, because there's always like a kind of like a weird tension between Xavier and Raven, and in this movie it was kind of hyped, and they were making Xavier look like the bad guy and Raven the good guy.
Yeah.
And they're like making like what she was doing right, and like how she was seeing how Xavier was like taking control of the X-Men or whatever. But it's like, no, he's just being a leader.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's not a perfect leader, but like,
yeah, I mean, he made some mistakes.
It didn't make any sense. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, Raven
that's also kind of part of his character development in the last movies, is he's learning to be a leader. Like, he didn't want to be the leader of the X-Men in the last movies, and then you get to this movie, and he's not doing a great job at it, but he's trying to be a leader.
Yeah, exactly.
But they make it look like he's the bad guy for not being perfect, and then Raven, because we know, like in the other movies, in the original X-Men trilogy, Raven's the bad guy. She's on the bad team, and
right, she goes with Eric. Yeah, like kind of works for Eric.
It's just with the timeline, it's just confusing. But
like this movie did not care at all about the timeline.
Yeah, no.
Like by the end of the movie, it's like this is a completely different movie.
Yeah, I would say this is even a different timeline than the timeline they made for Days of Future Past, because I know that at the end of Days of Future Past, Jean Grey is alive, and the school. Yeah. At the school that Xavier's teaching at, and at the end of this movie, she's dead, and Beast is leading the school,
and Xavier's retired.
Xavier's like retired, and it's called the Jean Grey School. Like, the timeline
was that is kind of dumb. Like, you name the school after the person who killed Raven. Raven, if you're gonna name it after someone besides Xavier, you should have named it after Raven. Like, even from
Yeah.
a story standpoint, that would have made a lot more sense. And I mean, sort of. Okay, I don't know, maybe not. Like she did sacrifice herself to save everyone, and but so did Raven. Like, and she was trying to do the right thing in order to sympathize with Jean and whatnot. So, anyways, that was weird. That was just a little tangent.
Yeah. And then just motivations in this movie, like
So
you said,
confusing.
there's a lot of things going on. None
Yeah.
of the motivations for anybody was clear.
No, not at
I
all.
mean, you can kind of pick up on it, but a lot of it was like forced with the writing and stuff. And
Right.
like Jean Grey, like she was like turning evil, right? It's called Dark Phoenix because she's like supposed to be like a bad guy or like a bad person, and
Uh huh.
her motivations were weak. Like it's because she what was it like?
Well, because of her. Well, because Xavier lied to her about
Oh
her
yeah,
past. Pretty
yeah,
much.
because Xavier lied to her about her past, which she
Yeah.
ends up forgiving him in the end for
Well,
that.
yeah,
which
and that was kind
is
of
fine.
like,
But
just because she
yeah,
was able to
and
look through
she
his
just
mind.
and it was just like throwing it off. She's like, "I forgive you. Okay, bye."
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the other thing was like that her dad was scared of her, so she took a huge offense to that. And
She already knew that. Like that was the thing. Like that
yeah,
was really dumb.
and so it's those two things. The Xavier lied to her, which he was doing to protect her because he knew that if she held on to that, then she would go crazy.
Oh, I guess never mind. Sorry,
And
she didn't know that, but she later on when Xavier kind of spoke to her, like, or she went into Xavier's mind, she already knew that her dad didn't want her. She knew that he had abandoned her.
Yeah.
Like, why was that the? I mean, I guess it's because Xavier cared. Well, obviously he cared. Like, obviously he did it for a reason. Like, this shouldn't be a surprise to her.
right.
And
And
but, I
then
don't know.
and then her dad's scared of her. It's like, well, yeah, you were like a monster. Like you were like a possessed person.
Yeah.
Like of course he's gonna be scared of you. Like should he have like abandoned you? No, but for that to be your two motivations to go completely crazy and basically try to destroy everything, that's a little much.
Yeah, it was.
And then like her final draw was like when she went to Magneto, and he didn't want her there, and then he did want her there, but like his uncertainty of her like all was like her final draw. It's like very very weak.
Yeah. 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 Eric's motivations were like, yeah, he wants to kill her because she found out that she killed Raven without even asking what happened, like was it an accident or whatever. He's like, no, I'm gonna kill her now. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they had that whole like he had that spiel about revenge and vengeance, and that he's always been driven towards it, and it's never satisfied him. And so I mean, it kind of makes sense with his character that he would want to take revenge on her, but there isn't much reason for us to believe that he actually is going to. And even from this movie standpoint, they don't really establish any of these relationships very well. Like they're and this is one thing that does bother me about like some sequels, is that you rely so much on the previous movies that you forget to develop these characters or give these characters some character. And I think it just gets really problematic. Like even was it there was one kind of relationship. I mean, maybe it was Gene. No, Gene and what's his face, Cyborg, or that's his hero name, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know
Red
who you're
Eyes.
talking about.
Red Eyes. Her
I
boyfriend.
have no idea. Who's
The laser eyes.
I don't know.
Wait. What's his superhero
Cyclops.
name? Cyclops. I said Cyborg.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Cyclops. Anyways, that wasn't it. There was like another relationship in the movie that like wasn't really well established in the movie itself, but we're supposed to care about it. Can't remember. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Magneto's a good example of that, and
Hmm.
And like when he came into the movie,
Like halfway through the
it
movie.
yeah, it was very clear. It was like you know this guy, you know everything you need to know about him, and uh, basically he's a grumpy guy that abandoned all his friends and
Yeah.
started his own little community.
Right.
Like that's and that was so, it was so forced. And
Hmm.
I also felt like a lot of like his motivations throughout this movie were very off compared to like the other movies,
Yep.
and and like his character development through those movies, and none of it worked, and it just
And
they
that's the thing.
just they just
He's
kind of
always
abandoned it.
yeah, he's about letting mutants be themselves. Don't be ashamed of your powers. Use them to the best of your ability, and all these things. Be yourself. Like that's kind of been his big thing. And
Mm-hmm.
like even though you're going to be ousted, you're going to be you know you're going to be rejected by society. You know, people are going to hate you. People are going to make fun of you. Um, but he invites them in, and like you meet him, and he's with this community of people of mutants that are just kind of living their own lives, left alone. He even says that the U.S. government gave them that land so they can just have their own community. So they're all about he's all about
Mm-hmm.
that, and like mutants sticking together. And then he finds out that Jean killed Raven, which he had already abandoned Raven. It's like he had already gone off on his own away from her. So, anyways, he so he's all about that, and then he finds out she killed her. So now he's gonna go kill Raven or kill Jean. It's like, but she was doing exactly what you want her to do, and she's been an outcast now. She's been rejected by everyone. So if you're consistent, you would bring her in and let her live in that community and be herself. But no, he goes off as like, I'm gonna kill her. And obviously Beast, like Beast's motivations made sense for the most part, because they established like they have a relationship. She was wanting to run away, but he told her no, or I think he said no, but they had some character there that they were
Yeah.
they were giving us reason to sympathize with him, when he lost her, when she died, and so him going to Eric made sense, and knowing but then he's like, I know I know that you would be willing to kill her, so that's why I'm coming to you. So he understood Eric's motivations more than we did, I guess. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that even in this movie where it's like the characters made decisions, and I didn't believe it. Like I don't believe you that you're actually going to make that decision, or that you actually care, because we're not given us reason to care, or to believe that
Mm-hmm.
you actually care, which which happens a lot in movies where the directors, the writers just assume that we're going to care about this character and their decisions that they make without actually giving us a reason to care. Um, it's the same thing with just in just human characters, just people in general that we meet, that we know. It's like we have to we make human decisions, and we make character decisions every day, but there's motivations, there's reasons, there's history, there's a past that has led us to where we are, and led us to us making that, wanting to make that decision, needing to make that certain decision. And when you're making a movie, like, I know you only have a short amount of time to help give us reason to care about this character, or to understand the motivations of the character. But oftentimes movies will just skip over that and just assume that because this character lost someone, because this character is angry, like, we should feel sympathy towards them. We should feel what they're feeling. But a lot of times we just don't, because you've not given us reason to care. You're not giving us reason to understand this person's motivations and what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. And so I felt that a lot during this movie. It's like, yeah, I don't like. I've seen these characters for 3 movies now, except for like Jean and Cyclops. But for the most part, I've seen them a bunch, and I don't know. It's just kind of frustrating and confusing when they're not giving us reasons to care about these characters. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's my tangent.
Yeah, and then we got the actual villains of the movie, which were those alien people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had already mentioned a bit about them. One thing about them, they weren't really present most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they kind of teased them for a second in the very beginning, which was just weird. It was just
Yeah.
like this, they were just on Earth all of a sudden and killed a few people and transformed into their likeness. And
Right.
then we don't see them again for quite a while, probably till at least the second act. And I don't remember what they did in that part, but yeah, then we don't really see them again till the end, till the big fight, and that's when we kind of learn who they were the whole time and what their motivation was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, it's very weak and very weak writing there.
Definitely. Yeah, they're just pretty generic villains, generic aliens that came from another universe,
Yeah,
and we don't know
they
anything about them.
They never really posed a real threat either.
No.
Like, they weren't like trying to destroy the world or anything. Well, I guess they were. I think they do say it once. They just say that they are trying to. They decide that they'll take over the world with the powers of the Phoenix if Jean can't control the power or whatever. Which
Right, and then they'll
really
use it to take over the world.
Yeah, which doesn't make much sense either. Why don't you just take it anyway? Why does she have to be able to control it?
Right. Exactly.
Like, so you're gonna use her to take over the world, or you're just not gonna take over the world if she can use it?
Right.
None of it made sense. They were just a strange villain, really. Like, it just didn't make sense to have them. I felt like that they could have just made Jean be the bad guy, because like that's kind of what they were going with in this movie for a while, and then she could have like her redemption or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good guy gone rogue and then comes back. Like that can be a good story. Which is essentially what they did with her. But at that point, you don't really need a villain, like, because they become their own villain.
Right.
And then, but you have these weird aliens, and then I feel like maybe they were just to have like some fight scenes and stuff. But even then, I don't know. That wouldn't make sense either, because they can have plenty of fight scenes without them.
Right. And their powers are not well defined, and they're bulletproof, I guess. And like, there's no like, they don't really show their weaknesses.
They have like no physicality at all,
right?
Other than being there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any powers that are used against them never really worked, and basically their only weakness was Jean's powers from the solar flare or whatever.
Yeah. And did they even like explain the connection between the solar flare and the aliens coming? Like, did they bring it, or was them entering?
They said they were saying it was like basically it had a mind of its own, and they were just following it.
Oh yeah,
that was it. They were just following it.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why, but
and then Jean happens to be up there in space, and
then get
sucked into it.
I think they said they were following it and observing it, and then they saw it go into Jean, and so they're like, "Oh, interesting."
Okay. Right.
And then at that point, that's when they decide, okay, we want this power now. But throughout the movie, they make it seem like they always wanted the power of the solar flare stuff or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they decided to just follow it in space until it found Jean, which, none of that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It was odd.
Yeah.
And they were just they were put into the story just to really, I guess, kind of move the plot along. It was for Jean, but not really, because then Jean, well, because once Jean turns good, then she needs someone to fight, and they've been trying to steal her power, which even then it's like it's not defined. So is that lady villain the only one that can actually take the power? Like, why was she all of a sudden able, like when they at the end, the last fight, like why was she able to like take it, and then she's like, okay, you can have all my power, and gives it to her, and then it goes up into space, and then they blow up or something.
Yeah, I don't
Just
know.
really weird. And then she dies. Like that
Yeah.
didn't. I mean, okay, it makes sense because she's a phoenix. Okay, so the phoenixes die and rise from the ashes. Like, okay, I guess, but she didn't like actually. They didn't show her alive. They showed that little phoenix in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was about. I guess
Yeah.
she's alive, but not. I don't know. Because what did she say in her speech at the end? Like, you know,
I'm
I may
here,
be
but
gone,
I'm
but
not
I'll
here.
always.
Oh yeah.
I may be gone, but I'll always live on through
I'll always be here or
the
something.
X-Men. Yeah,
Like I'm gone, but I'm here.
right.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And and like I said, it made no sense because of Days of Future Past, which is supposed to be the timeline that this is.
Right.
She's alive and well there, so.
Yeah.
But we'll never know.
We will never know.
This whole timeline is dead, so.
Yep. Yeah, no end credit scenes or anything.
Yeah, no end credit scenes.
They were just they were done. Get this movie out and move on.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like the whole movie I'm asking myself like, hey, where's this story going? Like what's going on? Like what story are they trying to tell? What's the plot here? And it was just kind of a mess. And then you even throw in the military, and which like I said, it was very generic. There wasn't like one guy leading it as there usually is. Like usually it's like Stryker or someone, but just generic military men who come in and then capture the X-Men, and because Jean unleashed her power, they all of a sudden don't like the X-Men, and so they need to arrest them and take them to the mutant containment facility again. We've already done this before. We're doing it again. It was once again just to move the story along.
Yeah, and to kind of, I think, like to kind of get them all together.
Yeah.
Too, and yeah, but it was done in like every other X-Men movie.
Right.
In this series of X-Men movies.
Pretty much.
It's like not even talking about the other ones. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't really have a whole lot more to say. I know another thing that of course bugged me was Mystique or Raven's little spiel about the women always saving the men, and you should change the name to X-Woman instead of X-Men. It's like that was really dumb. First of all, I mean, just from the point of view of the X-Men and why it's called X-Men, it's just a generic name. Like it's not like a specific gender necessarily. It's like like human, like it's just the X-Men. It's just like it's not necessarily saying because there's always been women in the X-Men. There's in fact there's a lot of women, and usually they're like kind of overpowered women, like the Phoenix, Jean Grey.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was kind of dumb. They just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, and then they kind of just made they made a lot of the men wimps in this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then
made
all the women the leaders and the heroics and the smart ones.
Yeah. Well, even going back to what you were saying about Xavier and how he didn't really do anything wrong. Like he was just being a leader, and he made some mistakes, but he was doing what was best and what was right. And and yet at the end he's the one that has to apologize. He's the one that's in the wrong, and Jean just needed to let out all her rage and her frustration and her anger, and her power allowed her to do that.
Yeah.
And she didn't really like. I guess, okay, so the lesson she learned was that her family's been there all along, like in the X-Men. That's her family now.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer like because her father abandoned her. So it's like, okay, she had to learn that. Okay, that's fine. But it wasn't like there was much of a fault in herself. It was just her powers that were making her do this, or well, her trauma and her past, is what was what led her to unleash her powers, and so she needs to learn how to control her rage. And that's kind of one thing that I think her and Eric were dealing with, because she was talking about asking Eric how he learned to control his powers, and he was talking about the thing about vengeance and how it never really satisfied him, and he kind of eventually realized that. But yeah, so that was it. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know, I'm not sure if there was really much of a flaw in her.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I would say it was that she didn't see, because she did. Okay, she didn't apologize, but she forgave Charles for lying to her because she realized he was doing the right thing,
right?
By trying to protect her. But then again, it's like still kind of saying that because for her to have to forgive him, then he was in the wrong, but he was being a leader and protecting, and but yeah, I think she did come to a point where she understood that he didn't go about things perfectly, but he was trying to protect her, and he did care about her, and that was kind of the point where she also realized that her family, including Charles, and like she does care about Charles, and so I think just her kind of learning that they are her family, and they, even though they're not perfect, they care about her, and so I think that was kind of the overall thing that she had to overcome in the end, and in the Dark Night of the Soul too. That's what she had to realize, and that's when she sacrificed herself and stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, man, I don't have a whole lot more to say. Some of the CGI. I feel like there were a handful of scenes that didn't look very good, that definitely kind of stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, but yeah, CGI just overall. It's just like typical modern CGI. You just know it's CGI. Like, you just
right.
It's just there in your face.
Yeah.
It's like distracting. But I guess I guess it wasn't even the music. I never noticed it, actually. The score.
I noticed it a couple times. It was pretty decent.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one thing that these movies have done well is, just been pretty decent scores.
Yeah.
Nothing that's distracting, and it kind of plays on the emotions a little bit, and and builds tension where it's needed. So yeah, for the most part,
for sure,
decent.
Yeah. Then we had all the same cast and actors, so I mean, there's a few people that were new, the villains or whatever.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like Jennifer Lawrence was kind of the same in this one as she was the last one too.
Right, and then she gets killed off like really early.
Yeah,
wasn't expecting it, and it was kind of. I mean, once again, it was just to move the plot along.
Yeah.
I mean, we were for the most part given reasons to care, especially like I said with her relationship with Beast, and and how they were considering leaving everything behind, and leaving
Yeah,
Charles.
and like that's a point where like having not Xavier, Magneto in the movie earlier instead of just putting him in there after she dies. To like he should have been there, at least been with her at some point in the movie to make it a little more emotional for him when we see like that he finds out that she died. Like they could have like put a scene in the very beginning of the movie where I don't know, where they were just getting along, having a good time, and then she dies like away from him, and then he finds out, and then that even just that one little thing would bring so much more emotion to him. And but they didn't do anything like that, so I don't know. But yeah, I think we pretty much went over everything.
Anything good from this movie? It really wasn't much. Like I said, like I mean, the first two acts were all right, but then once you get to the third act, it's kind of a mess. And at one point, I thought the movie was like getting to an end, like when she was talking with Xavier, or when Xavier was in her mind, or she was in Xavier's mind. It kind of felt like that was going to be the climax. But then there was a whole bunch more, like you're fighting off the generic villains and then the X-Men escaping the train and whatnot.
Yeah, and this was actually not a super long movie.
It was an hour
under
50.
2 hours.
Yeah,
hour 50, which is pretty short for a superhero movie, especially with that many characters.
True.
And yet it was still super boring.
Yeah, it was.
Felt slow.
Pacing was bad.
Pacing was so bad, and even like, I mean, our review of it, like there's not a whole lot to go over because the whole plot was like just being forced after forced after forced after forced. And so when you just have that, there's not much, like, especially when you don't have much good to talk about it.
Right.
And then even the bad is just kind of like, this is it. Like, this is what you're getting.
Pretty much. Yeah, well, I think I've covered just about everything.
Yeah.
So there's not much.
Yeah, so if you guys want to support our show, you can support us on Patreon. We do an after hours show there where we talk about Stan Lee cameos and credit scenes. Typically, I know this one is another exception to that, but we'll talk about other stuff. And there is some stuff about Stan Lee relating to this that we'll talk about, and then we'll just talk some of the latest stuff in Hollywood and movies coming out and things that have come out, and just talking the latest in movies. And yeah, you can find us on Patreon and listen to that there for just $5 a month and help keep this show going.
Yep.
All right, so rating for this movie. I haven't even written one down. I was gonna wait to do it right now.
Yeah, I'm realizing that sometimes it's more helpful after talking through it with you to kind of come up with a score. 'Cause, I also didn't write mine down, but I was kind of thinking through it, and because what we did, X-Men Origins Wolverine was a 5.1, and I feel like the only thing that one had going for it that this one didn't was just a plot, a story that was, for the most part, straightforward. It had. I mean, that movie had so many problems, but this one too. And there wasn't much redeemable about this movie. And I think I would put this movie lower than X-Men Origins. So I'm thinking 4.8. That's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd put it below X-Men Origins. I'd be more likely to watch X-Men Origins again.
Totally.
Versus this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
Because what do we give Punisher?
1.9.
Oh yeah, okay. So So maybe 4.8 is a little too generous.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe 3.8 or
Yeah,
even closer to 3.
you would do like 3.7.
Yeah.
I think that's a good score. That's a generous score. 'Cause like I said, there's not much going for this movie. There's not much that's redeemable about it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
no,
as
for sure.
bad of a movie as say The Punisher was or Howard the Duck. But it's still pretty bad movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Howard the Duck and Punisher had more things than just bad writing and bad acting and stuff
yeah,
like that. It had a lot more than that. And this movie was more structured
right.
even than
It
those
was
two movies, and had more going for it for sure. So
definitely. All right, yeah, I say 3.7. Not bad.
yep.
Well, no, it is bad. It's very bad. That's what we're
Yeah, so
at.
it is this is our fourth
Yeah.
X-Men.
So this one would
I,
be
I was
the
thinking
lowest. What did we do? Apocalypse. What was Apocalypse's score?
6.1
Okay, yeah. So Apocalypse was definitely better.
because it was bland like these other movies, but it had like actual it had some redemption
Yep.
and a very evident bad guy and the killing of the bad guy and all that stuff. So
Right. And yeah, some better character development.
yeah, so our next movie is Captain Marvel. So this movie took place in 1995, right?
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, it's somewhere
Oh
around
no,
there.
1993, I think. 1993, I think it was.
All I remember was
And
the
then
blockbuster. It was 90s.
you're talking about
Sorry, you say
I
Captain
was talking
Marvel?
about yeah, I was talking about Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix took place in I think
Oh,
1993. And then Captain Marvel takes
93.
place in
Got it.
like 95 or something like that.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds
And
about
then
right.
I'm thinking about it. I think X-Men is the next movie. No. Blade and then X-Men.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I can't wait till
So
Blade.
so we're not too far from another X-Men movie.
Okay.
There's
So
so many X-Men movies though.
there's a lot, and we've covered almost half.
Yeah, most of them we've covered already. So
Yeah.
they are a lot more scattered.
Right.
And for this season 1, there's a lot of X-Men movies. Season 2, I don't think there's any X-Men movies. Maybe one or two in the 20 plus movies that we're going through.
Okay. Yeah.
And this one has 7, 8 at least. 8,
Right.
I think.
I think 8 would be, yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, we'll close out. Well, thanks everyone for listening to another episode. There wasn't really much for this one, but I think we definitely unpacked it as much as we could, and it was a boring movie. Was not much redeemable about it, and sometimes that's how some movies are, and people just creators forget how to tell stories, and that's what we're trying to reveal and unpack and give credit where credit is due, but help us understand what makes a good story and what makes a bad story. So it was fun as always, and look forward to next week. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
All right, we're out.